Welcome to Coddiwompling Along The Tao with Noel Eastwood, and this is episode 6, and I'm going to walk you through the High Priestess. And as Robert Place says, this is the most controversial card of the deck. Controversial for many reasons. Now I'm looking at this screen because this is where I've got all my things on. So I'm going to just get that picture up. And here we have the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith deck, and we can see it's called the High Priestess, and we have the Pillars of Solomon, which comes from Freemasonry, which we know that Waite was a Freemason. He was of the Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn. He was a Rosicrucian. He was heavily into the esoteric, into magic. He was raised as a Catholic, and I think he came back to Catholicism in his old age. We have the crystal ball, we have pretty flowers, we have the cross, we have the scroll, we have the water, and we have the moon. So these are the keys of the High Priestess card. But the controversy begins with the name, the High Priestess. If we go back to 14th century Italy, that was a Catholic country. There's no way in the world that Catholicism would allow a card called the High Priestess in a deck that was played by the priests themselves. When they finished their studies in church, they'd run out the back and play cards with their mates. Remember, the Catholic Church is a boys' club. They're all men. What on earth would a High Priestess of the Temple of Isis, the Temple of Vesta? Is she the High Priestess of the Temple of Juno or Persephone or Aphrodite? Who is she the High Priestess of? Let's just look at, I think it's this one. Here we go. Originally, this card was called the Papess. Well, there's a second controversy. There's no female pope. Well, even back in 14th century, 15th century Europe, again, the Catholic Church was a boys' club. What on earth is there a female pope doing there? What happened is our good friend Antoine Court de Gebelin, back in the late 1700s, he believed that the tarot deck was invented by a secret society in Egypt called the Gypsies. And of course the word gypsy comes from the word Egypt, gypsies. And he renamed it as the High Priestess. So from Le Papesse, from the female pope, the popess, to the High Priestess in the 1780s. Now, just prior to that, there was a pope that was horrified that his people were playing gambling. Not only did they gamble with dice and arm wrestles and all those things and drank and had fun, but his people, the priests and the student priests, the novices, the monks, they played cards like it was the best thing since sliced bread, although they probably didn't have sliced bread in those days. What happened is that he saw these cards freely available to the population as well, with a female pope and a pope, and he didn't like it, so he demanded that they get rid of those two cards. So they replaced them with Juno, who is Hera. Juno is the Roman name for the female, the wife of Jupiter, Jove, who is in Greek Zeus, and of course Juno is Hera. So he actually got rid of these cards for a time, but they came back, of course. Now there's a story behind this card, and in particular I want to look at this actual picture. This picture comes from the Visconti family. It's the Visconti Sforza deck. It's a reproduction of a deck from the 15th century, one of the oldest tarot decks featuring authentic and hauntingly beautiful medieval scenes with no text. Now, you can actually buy a copy of this deck, and I've was given a copy of this deck by a very dear friend, and it is stunning. It really is a beautifully crafted and painted deck. And the pictures, that's painted in gold. They're really beautiful. So remember what I was saying earlier is that the wealthiest people in the known world at that time were the merchants of Venice and Milan and in Italy, because they controlled the trade from Africa, from Egypt, the Nile, from Turkey, from Persia, from China. Everything was channeled through their ships and their trade organization. They're phenomenally well organized. So they serviced all of Europe, and the trade went through them backwards and forwards. So they could afford the very best artists. But what on earth are they doing creating a female pope? They were Catholics. Catholicism ruled the people through their alignment with the kings and the leaders of trade and industry in Europe. So how did this happen? So I'm going to read, first of all, from Robert Place, is Popess Joan, who is said to have been a popess, in 855 AD. Now this is Robert Place's book. I'll try and get it there. The Tarot, History, Symbolism and Divination. Now this is a great book. If you see anything by Robert Place, Place, it's an easy name to remember, grab it. Okay, so he's talking about a group called the Guglielmites. Their founder, the visionary heretic Guglielma, who had died in Milan in 1281, was believed by her followers to be an incarnation of the Holy Spirit. Guglielma had predicted late in 1300 the New Age would begin and there would be a line of female popes. When the year 1300 arrived, her followers elected Sister Manfreda, a relative of the Visconti family, and of course, this is the Visconti family's own personal family deck, as the first papess. The Inquisition destroyed the sect, and although when the Inquisition found this new papess, she was already dead, they burned her body at the stake. Mockley, which is the reference that Place has borrowed, believes that the Visconti Sforza papess is a portrait of Sister Manfreda. Now, that is interesting, and that really, one would think that would hold water as, let me just get rid of that book, as who this is portrayed a portrait of, Sister Manfreda. Of course, it's a family member, and a very famous one at that. However, what about Pope Joan of 855 AD? Now, this is a book by Paul Husson. Paul Husson is another historian, another tarot reader, another tarotist, and artist. Both of these guys are artists, phenomenal artists too. And their decks are just stunning. I recommend you get these books. This one is Mystical Origins of the Tarot, From Ancient Roots to Modern Usage by Paul Husson, Husson. The Dominican monk Jean de Malay was the first to mention her in his chronicle around 1255, and her existence was widely and long accepted. She was said to have been elected to the papacy in 855 as Pope John VIII. Chronicler Polonus gives the following details of her story. After Leo IV, John Anglus, a native of Merse, reigned 2 years, 5 months and 4 days, and the pontificate was vacant for a month. He died in Rome. He is related to have been a female, and when a girl, to have accompanied her lover in male costume to Athens. There she advanced in various sciences, and none could be found to equal her. So, after having studied for 3 years in Rome, she had great masters for her pupils and hearers, and when there arose a high opinion in the city of her virtue and knowledge, she was unanimously elected Pope. But during her papacy, she became pregnant by a servant. Not knowing the time of birth, as she was on her way from St. Peter's to the Lateran, she had a painful delivery between the Colosseum and St. Clement's Church in the streets. Some versions of the story recount that the child and mother died on the spot, some that she survived and was imprisoned, and others that the child was spirited away to become the Antichrist of the last days. Later Protestant writers were not satisfied that the father of the baby should have only been a servant. Some made him a cardinal, others Satan himself. So here we have two rather exciting versions of who this papess could be. Could have been a depiction of St. Joan, 855. Was that a myth, or did it really happen? Or could she have been Sister Manfreda, one of the family of the early works of the tarot, one of the Visconti families? It's interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let me just go through some names or some labels that we've got for the High Priestess. Just bearing in mind that my interpretation of this card in my books in the Fool's Journey series is as Hera, who is the wife of Zeus. Now, Hera is the goddess of families, of motherhood, of mothers, of wives. So the ancient Romans, or the older Roman, of the old Roman period, they would pray to her when they had family problems, husband problems, that sort of thing. So I have interpreted her as intuition, the goddess of intuition. And we can see from the modern portrayal, because we don't see that here, we don't see the moon, the crystal ball, we don't see the pillars of Solomon. They came in much, much, much later. We just have a female pope sitting on a chair with the Bible. Let's go back to this one. And here we have all the extras that have been added in time. Crystal ball. We still got the original cross, the Catholic cross. We now have a scroll rather than a Bible. This is her secrets. The Arcana. We got the Temple of Solomon pillars from Freemasonry. And of course, Waite was a Freemason. He was of the Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn, a Rosicrucian. He wrote heavily about magic and magical orders. And we've got water and we've got the moon. Okay, so these are the names that we can use. High Priestess, Papess, Seer, Grandmother, Crone, Hag, Witch, Wise Woman, Old Wife, Lady of the Lake, a Shaman, Female Shaman, Shamaness, Druid, Druidess, Moon Goddess, Dream Reader, Clairvoyant, Psychic, Gypsy, Crystal Ball Reader, Fortune Teller, the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, the Holy Mother Church. So there's many, many interpretations, and that's just part of it, you know. As a High Priestess, as I said, is she the temple attendant of any of the ancient orders? Isis, Persephone, Demeter, Juno? We don't know. It's up to our interpretation as a tarot reader to make that distinction. And I portray her as being not of this world, of being in the inner world. So therefore, to access the wisdom that she carries in her hands is to quiet the mind and to go within through meditation. And that's why Fallen and his wife Eve, the lovers in my stories, they train all the time to quiet their mind, to contact that intuitive part of ourselves. And that's why, I do it. That's why you do it. Okay, I'm going to now look at some pretty pictures. So here we have the Visconti Sforza version of the 15th century. And as I said, if you get a chance, grab a copy. They are absolutely stunning. This is the Marseille deck. And there they are. We can look at the originals going back to the 1700s, the 18th century. And of course, the reason that we have so many Marseille versions is because Marseille was a region in France that had a lot of printers. They had a lot of contracts to produce card decks for different people, for different companies, and they produced a lot of slight variants of the Marseille deck. So that's why we have so many subtle variants. And this is another version. This is the Conver version by Yarov Ben Dov. It is based on the standard deck published in Marseille by Nicholas Conver, 1760. And you can download the pictures that is recreated and enhanced. We look at that one and compare it to this. I'm getting there. To this one. So that's what Yarov Ben Dov has done. So you can download them for free or buy a deck. Actually, he's done a stunning job, this fellow. Then I went online because I love pictures and I love how people have interpreted the tarot in their own way. So when you get your deck, a variant of the Waite, Coleman Smith one or the Marseille, whichever deck, those variants have their own energy. They have their own interpretations. And the interpretation comes through you. So I love looking at how people have interpreted, particularly this card. It's a really odd one because there's the Roman Catholic Church is a boys' club. They're all men. What on earth is a female pope doing there? Here we go. Aren't they stunning? This is my go-to deck, the Wildwood Tarot that I go to, the strongly Celtic Druid deck. So if I want to do some work on myself, this is one of the decks that I'll go to and just do a meditation on the card that I draw. That's the Seer. This is beautiful. Again, we've got the crystal ball, we've got the moon, and the scroll of wisdom. This is the Arabian Nights. I couldn't get a larger picture, but that is beautiful. And here we are. This is the average person. This is you or me sitting down doing a meditation, doing our studies. So that's a great interpretation. Boil, bubble, toil and trouble. We have the witch and Wicca, paganism. And again, a phenomenally apt interpretation of the High Priestess. This is Robert Place's tarot. Robert Place is the guy the quote that I read about the nun, Sister Manfreda. I love this one. We've got the moon there, we've got the crystal ball, the wisdom, book of wisdom there. This is the Chiro deck. He's got the scroll. Don't know what the horns are for. Maybe I should read his manual. But here we have Persephone's pomegranate. So there's a link to the Temple of Persephone. Got the Owl of Wisdom. If you go onto Pinterest, you'll see many collections of interpretations of the High Priestess. It's just stunning. And Here we have, who is the moon goddess? There are so many goddesses. The moon goddess would be appropriate. There's the maiden, the mother, the crone. So we got wisdom, we got youthfulness, we got fertility. Is that what she represents? Maybe. Anyway, thank you for watching, and please feel welcome to leave a comment. If there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, pop that in as well. I'll get round to doing all of those requests. Don't you worry about that. And I will catch you with the next one, which is Taoist alchemy, which I think you will like. Thank you.